Hi, this is Don, and I'm an old school kind of guy. As the title of this video says, today I want to talk about ick. It's scientific name that I don't know how to pronounce, so I want to butcher for you, just to show off. You know, that my tongue can actually twist around, is Ichthyophthyreus. And then there's another name, you know, like that's the Corydoras, and then Aeneas. I don't know what the other is. I don't care. And no, don't ask me that again, because I only memorized it for today. It's short-term memory. It's gone, okay? Gone. They tell me that ick is always present in the water. I suppose that's not always true. I mean, if you dump a whole bunch of chemicals in your fish tank before you put the fish in, you probably kill the ick. And then if you quarantine your fish and treat them real good, you know, okay. But listen, in the wild, ick is always there. But there's more water, fewer fish, water flows better in most places. Ick is less of an issue because it only attacks the weakened fish. Healthy fish can fight it off. But there are always weak fish in the wild, so some get it, but not most. At a wholesaler's, they have ick. They're going to pick up ick. They're going to have it on some fish. And if they get it on one and it starts to spread, they got one choice and only one choice in that volume, and that's chemicals. You go to your local fish store, and I mean, that's the fish farms, the importers. You go to your local fish store, they're dealing in quantity. And oftentimes they have all their tanks on one filtration system, or maybe they have 10 tanks on one filtration system and 10 on another. Ah, the sound of the dogs barking. We have 4 dogs, and if somebody might happen to pass by on our dirt road, the dogs think somebody might be passing by, they like to bark. Fish don't do that. The dogs are not mine. The fish are mine. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes. You know, so these big time people that have 200 tanks in their basement, they probably don't have individual filters on every tank. Well, they probably do, but they might be sharing water across tanks. A lot of them don't. But if you have ick in one tank and use the same net in another, you're probably spreading it. So if you're big time, you're probably using chemicals. I hate the chemicals because, like influenza, you know, the flu bug gets more dangerous every year because it builds up immunity to the antivirus. You know, even penicillin doesn't work as well today as it once did. Well, it's true with fish too. So number one, keep your tanks clean, people. Watch the fish daily. Do your regular water changes. Clean your gravel if you've got it. Siphon the detritus wherever it is. Do I always get that done? No, I'm not the best at it. But I tell you what, I haven't fought a battle of ick in the last year. And I've only been back in the hobby since January of 2014. 2015. I was out of the hobby for many years. I very seldom fight ick because I isolate. I quarantine for weeks before the fish come into my tanks. 6 weeks is not unusual for me to do a quarantine. I want to make sure the fish are disease-free, and it's not just ick. I want to make sure they're disease-free before they go into my tanks that are nice and dark over there. That's why I'm sitting over here. Number 2, if you get ick, you will find people giving you blanket suggestions like raise the temperature 6 degrees. Well, okay, people, that's stupid advice. Come on, think for yourself. If you've got goldfish at 65 degrees, raise the temperature 10 degrees. If you're at 70 degrees, raise it 10 degrees. The most common temperature out there is 78 degrees. How do I know that? I know that because they make heaters that are preset to 78 degrees and you can't change them. Okay? They aren't doing that for every temperature range on the chart. It's 78 degrees. It's the only one I've found. That's got to be the most common temperature. I was told in my younger days, 40, 50 years ago, that the life cycle of ick was 4 days at 78 degrees and 3 days at 80 degrees. So when I treat a tank, I treat it for a week, but I don't stop treating it unless I see it gone for at least 3 or 4 days, or at least 1 or 2. Listen, you got to make sure the life cycle of the ick is done before you stop treating. So if you've got a tank at 84 degrees, like some discus breeders keep their fish at 84 degrees, and those discus can be very expensive and precious. You don't want to mess around. I don't know if I'd raise it to 94 degrees or not. Ask a discus breeder. But I tell you what I would do is I would raise it to 88 or 90, maybe. If I'm running at 80 degrees, which many tropical fish like, I wouldn't hesitate to raise it to 88 degrees. I'll even raise 78 degree tanks to 88 degrees. Doesn't hurt the fish. Now, we know it speeds up metabolism, so it shortens the lifespan, but we're only talking a week or 2 here. And speeding up the metabolism helps fight the disease. All right? Number 2, water changes. When I'm fighting ick, I will do 50 to 80% water changes daily. Now, I like South Americans. Back in my younger days when I had 30 tanks in my house and I wanted to do water changes, I did all my water changes one day. I did 50% minimum on every tank. But I was living on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. My water was coming out of the ground at 6.4 with 0 chlorine or chloramine or anything like that. I didn't even have a lot of dissolved solids. I mean, it was nice. If we had a lot of rain, I'd get water at 6.0, 6.2. And I could do water changes all day long for my South Americans, and it was wonderful. Today, my well here, it runs 8.4 if we've had a lot of rain, and we don't get a lot of rain very often. Usually I'm at 8.7, even 8.8 is very, very normal here. I wish I was an African cichlid keeper, but they aren't my passion. I lose. I have to treat every bit of water I use for water changes. And I don't like chemicals. I know they have these jars of stuff. I use it on my hot tub because I have to lower the pH on my hot tub. I don't use that for my fish tanks. I have it. I buy it from my fish supply because it's cheaper than from this hot tub supply. Man, they soak you. I use catappa leaves. I use peat moss. I use bristle cones. And that's how I lower my pH. And I don't have a heavy iron concentrate. I just have a lot of total dissolved solids. I don't have any phosphates issues or any, there's not a lot of fertilization going on around me because this prairie ground doesn't grow anything but prairie grass, whether you fertilize or not. I don't have a lot of animals around me because they don't grow a lot of grass, so you don't have a lot of animals. So I don't have any contamination. I still have to treat every gallon of water. Unless I'm doing like a 10% water change, then it's okay. It'll raise up a little bit. Fish don't mind that. It'll drop. They're okay. It happens in nature. But listen, with ick, the more water change you do, the better. If you've got the perfect water for, like my water for Africans, I do 90% a day if I was fighting ick. If I was living in Portland and I had South Americans, I'd do 90% a day if I was fighting ick. Do as best as you can. I've got spare 55-gallon totes always in my storeroom, always multiple. Sometimes I've got some smaller ones available. I grab those. I grab every tote I can and I start treating water all over the house. I got a 45-gallon trash can on wheels that I use most often, but if I got ick in all my tanks, because I was stupid and used the net from one to the other, then I'm going to get everything out, people. Water change, water change, water change. It reduces the amount of ick spores floating in the water. Common sense. Third thing, old school way, salt. I don't use it. I'm not an expert at salt. Why? Because I got Corridora cats and their cousins. They don't do well with salt. There are fish with no scales, they don't do well with salt. You kill them. Now, there are other fish that love salt. You've got some mollies in there, dump in salt. Now, you got to have some sense though. Let's go with guppies. Nice hearty fish. If you've got just live bears, guppies, platies, whatever, add 1 teaspoon of salt per gallon on the first day. Remember, if you got a 55-gallon tank and you got a bunch of rock, gravel, decoration, you probably only have 45 to 48 gallons of water. So consider that. 1 teaspoon per gallon. That's a lot of salt. Don't use table salt. Buy some aquarium salt. Keep some around. On the second day, or maybe 6 hours or 8 hours into your first day, add a 2nd teaspoon. This for live bears. Depends on your tank. Know your fish. Study them. Some will take a little salt. Some will take a good amount. Some will take a lot. Add that 3rd teaspoon per gallon. But here's the thing. For every water change you do, if you've got a 55-gallon tank, let's say you got 50 gallons of water in it, and you do 50% water change, 25 gallons out, 25 gallons back in, you have to add the same amount of salt to the incoming water that you had in the old water. Got it? All right. Finally, if that doesn't work, go back to the chemicals. I hate to do it, but that's the only option. I keep a little bottle because none of my tanks are linked. But I also have a big box store nearby me. I don't have a local fish store. Nearest one 70 miles away. So I keep a little jar. It has an expiration date. Pay attention to it. We're talking about your fish. Keep them happy. Treat them right when they're sick. That's what you do with yourself. Do it for your fish. Or get out of the hobby. That's the old school way. And there is evidence that once a fish has been infected, it's more resistant, not immune, more resistant. So don't go into a panic. Watch your fish every day. Treat them right away and keep your fish happy, and you'll have long-lived fish. Well, as long as your species goes. Hey, whatever, have fun. And try some old school way.